Trump has 9 lives. After surviving 4 indictments in an assassination attempt, he accepted the Republican presidential nomination this week. Wall Street is so impressed that it wants to hitch on to his bandwagon to turn around an otherwise unspectacular year so far. But would it be a smooth path from now to November 5th? Why is it that Trump 2.0 will be anything but smooth, especially compared to Trump 1.0? What are the ultimate Trump trades? I made some pretty big calls in my 20-year career on Wall Street. Some were right and some were wrong. But the biggest call of my career was my prediction in 2016 that 1, Donald Trump will go on to win the US presidential election, and 2, that US rates and the US dollar will rise as a result. If the call had gone against me, it might have ended my career. Wall Street is unforgiving towards those who challenge the consensus and get it wrong. But luckily, the call went my way and catapulted my career. Behind every prediction are assumptions. There were 3 assumptions behind my prediction. 1, I thought Trump would do better in the Rust Belt states than what election polls were suggesting. With the Republicans already holding majority in both the Senate and the House, I was banking on a Republican clean sweep. 2, I thought a Republican clean sweep would lead to substantial fiscal easing. History was on my side. I knew that every clean sweep in recent decades had led to either tax cuts or increased government spending, regardless of the party in question. 3, I thought fiscal easing would lead to higher interest rates and a higher dollar. That was just simple economics 101. 8 years after I made the biggest prediction of my career, Trump is once again the Republican nominee for president. Since the Biden-Trump debate, Trump trades have come back into vogue on Wall Street. Trump trades made a lot of money for many macro investors in 2016. Will they do so again in 2024? What are the ultimate Trump trades in 2024? The consensus on Wall Street right now is another Republican clean sweep that will result in tax cuts and a bigger budget deficit. This is presumably why investors are piling to stocks and curve steepeners. But will history repeat itself? I am more than a little doubtful. If my 30-year career in the business of making predictions taught me anything at all, it is that the starting point matters a lot. In this respect, 2024 and 2016 cannot be any more different. This is especially the case with the US budget deficit. The budget deficit in 2016 was just 3.1% of GDP. In contrast, the budget deficit in the current fiscal year is forecasted by the Congressional Budget Office to reach 6.7% of GDP. Whereas Trump's first term was preceded by fiscal tightening in Obama's second term, a second Trump term will be preceded by fiscal excess under Biden. Put differently, if Obama gifted Trump with a free lunch, Biden, if he were his potential replacement, loses in November, would be leaving Trump with an empty fridge. What this means is that even if the Republicans were to go on to win a clean sweep in November, the scope for fiscal easing in a Trump 2.0 would be very limited. This is why even though Trump talks about big tax cuts on the campaign trail, his policy agenda doesn't really go much beyond making his 2017 tax cuts permanent when they expire at the end of 2025. With federal debt held by the public at 100% of GDP and interest payments over $1 trillion, even Trump understands the fiscal cliff is near. But what would rolling over the 2017 tax cuts do for the US economy? Given 99% of Americans are not aware that their current low tax rates are temporary, making them permanent is probably not going to make them feel richer or want to spend more. While these paper tax cuts would do little to spur economic growth, they will still have to be paid for though. According to the Congressional Budget Office, they would cost about $4 trillion over 10 years. Trump is proposing to pay for them by imposing a 60% tariff on imports from China and a 10% tariff on all other imports. He's selling these tariffs as a tax on foreigners, especially China. There are two little problems with this proposal. First, it would not be enough to pay for his tax cuts. The tariffs will only be able to raise $2.5 trillion over 10 years, according to an estimate by the Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. China's share of U.S. imports has fallen to just 13%. Second, the tariffs would almost certainly trigger an ugly global trade war that would likely precipitate a global recession. In equilibrium, tariffs are inflationary, but the path to the equilibrium could be deflationary. Is Trump 2.0 bullish or bearish bonds? Not very clear to me. What about stocks? In my view, Trump's tariff would give the European Union and the rest of the G20 the perfect excuse to go ahead and impose and collect a proposed international digital services tax on most US technology firms like Google, Amazon, Apple, and Facebook. For this reason alone, Trump 2.0 could turn out to be bearish for stocks. What about the dollar? I've argued elsewhere why the Magnificent Seven are so central to the dollar's outlook. If Trump's policies end up jeopardizing them, the big tech monopolies that are America's goose that lays the golden egg, the dollar will find itself in serious trouble. What about Bitcoin? Bitcoin has rallied hard since the assassination attempt on Trump. I would be very surprised, though, if Trump remains bullish on Bitcoin if he gets reelected. With the pressure to finance a huge fiscal black hole, he would have no incentive to encourage any alternative to the US dollar, whether it's the RMB or Bitcoin. What about oil? In theory, a second Trump term will be bearish for oil because there's likely to be more drilling under his watch. However, a potential full implementation of sanctions on Iran's oil exports of 1.5 million barrels per day could be difficult to offset in the short term. Compared to the 2016 elections, there's really nothing obvious about the 2024 elections. Was the attempt on Trump's life last week the work of a lone wolf? If it's not, will they try again? Will Biden quit the race, and who will replace him? With Senate Democratic candidates doing better in the polls than Biden in their respective states, can the Republicans regain control of the Senate? How serious are the concerns among Republicans about voting by non-citizens? Will Trump accept the outcome of the election if he loses? Is Trump's tariff talk just campaign speak, or does he really mean it? What about the top item on Trump's long list of campaign promises? Carry out the largest deportation operation in America's history. Data from U.S. Customs and Border Protection shows an accumulated 8 million encounters with migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border since Biden took office. The actual number of illegals entering the U.S. over the past 4 years is likely to be much higher. Trump has promised to deport all illegal immigrants. If he's leading Biden in the polls, it has probably a lot to do with the fact that 50% of Americans are in favor of mass deportation of illegal workers, including 40% of Democrats. One of Trump's advisors, a former acting head of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is proposing for the military to round up, put in camps, and deport more than 11 million undocumented immigrants. 11 million sounds like a lot. But even deporting 1 million people would be a very messy affair. Where are you going to send them to? Things could even get violent. Imagine the military is sent into sanctuary cities to round up illegals and comes up against protesters. This could be what we are looking at in the first few months of a second Trump term. Where does all this leave me in terms of investment strategy? Volatility and risk premium are too low in the market, and investors are too complacent about the election and what it means for the US economy. I like gold, the September VIX, and the Japanese yen. I also like the Mexican peso. All I know is that for Trump to make good on its promise on dealing with the illegals, he will have to be very nice to Mexico. Thank you for listening.